Teo's been on a talking spree lately. Teofimo Lopez. Um, he had a couple of things to say. Now, in the last couple of weeks, he's been kind of all over the place a little bit. We saw him talking to Eddie Hearn, speaking to Eddie Hearn, how trying to convince, I guess, Eddie Hearn and everybody else that he's undisputed. That there's no just quote franchise designation, that he's the actual champion and he's undisputed when it comes to the WBC period. And Eddie Hearn was shaking his head not having it, and he said that if you want me to fight Devin Haney, cool, give me $10 million. Which I actually said, why not? Why not give him, maybe not 10, but why not give him 7 with all the people that DAZN's paying 7? If he'll come to your platform in a fight that would be the biggest fight on, that you probably ever had on your platform, yeah, give him the 7, especially, and for undisputed, invest in your fighter. If you truly believe in that man, if he's what you say he is, do it. Just like Al Heyman did when he spent all that money during the Olympics on Errol Spence to fight Bundu. That slot cost him anywhere from $10 million and up, and he paid it. He paid it because he believed in that man. So put the money up, But that to the side, when it comes to the undisputed thing, he mentioned that again, and what he was saying about the undisputed thing was that, he is undisputed, and that anybody who has anything negative to say about it is just due to the fact that they're haters. But we all know that's not the case. Devin Haney is a WBC champion. So you're not going to become undisputed unless you fight him. You're a franchise champion, or you have a franchise designation. It can't be a belt, number one, because it would be violating the Ali Act. You can't have a belt where, there's no ranking system. Like, who's the number 1 ranked guy? Number 2, 3, 4, 5, when it pertains to that belt. Who's a franchise champion at 118? Who's a franchise champion at 122, at 126, at 140, at 147, at 154? There are none. There are none, because it's a designation. It's not an actual belt, So you have to fight him to become undisputed. That's just what it is, period. Now, Teo is probably going to become undisputed anyway. Within his next 2-3 fights, he's probably going to end up fighting the winner of Ramirez versus Taylor, and he definitely will be undisputed at that particular time if he's able to come out victorious in that fight. And what would be a big fight for him that they'll probably have later on, probably at the end of the year or early in the beginning of the next year. He also talked about Lomachenko, and he said when it comes to Lomachenko, he doesn't see that fight happening again. He said Lomachenko didn't want to give him a rematch clause, so now that Lomachenko's lost, he's good, and I don't blame him. I mean, that was idiotic of Lomachenko to put himself into that type of situation. If you should have had a rematch clause, especially since you said you quote fought hurt. Should have had a rematch clause to protect yourself. Floyd Mayweather, probably the greatest fighter to ever fight in boxing, period. He had rematch clauses. And it didn't matter who he was fighting. He could be fighting Joe Schmo from down the block, who's just done 10 years in solitary confinement, and he was strapped to a chair the whole time, so his body was completely just no muscular clarity to him whatsoever. Doesn't matter. He's putting that rematch clause. So if he's putting it in, you should as well, especially when you have 3 belts and you quote 3 belts, really 2 belts. And if you're supposedly going into that fight hurt, got to do it. And he didn't do that, So he said he's just moving on to his next chapter, and that's it when it comes to that. And the main thing I want to talk about, though, he was talking about when it comes to people have been getting on him a lot, just due to the things that he's been saying. When it comes to Devin Haney, when it comes to Gervonta Tank Davis. According to his father, according to him, it, quote, doesn't make any business sense to fight them, which makes no sense. Devin Haney would be for undisputed. That would be number 1, especially if you could bring him to your platform. or if they'll pay you the amount that, would be needed, which they're not going to do. There's no not going to spend any money on Devin Haney. So you wouldn't be going to that platform for anything anyway. Gervonta Tank Davis, we've seen the gates that he does. He's been doing. We've seen him do 240,000 pay-per-views. So we know how massive a fight that would be. So to say that doesn't make any business sense is asinine. It's completely asinine. And then the whole speaking of, that he's the A side when it comes to everything, that Teofimo, I'm the A side when it comes to everything. So they're going to have to take what we offer them. They're going to have to do what we tell them. And again, it makes no sense. You're saying this to a man who, in Gervonta Tank Davis, who made more money in his last fight. Forget him. His opponent made more money in his last fight than your entire card with Lomachenko. But you're the A side. Doesn't make any sense. So people have been getting on him because of all this stuff. And we kind of are hearing the people that he's probably going to fight, some kid from Australia. That type of level opponent, because he's staying, I guess, for 1 or 2 more fights at 135 pounds. So people obviously would get on him. They're going to call you a cherry picker because you have all these different options that are available to you, but then you're saying no. And what he basically said was that, that he's not going to cherry pick, that he wants to fight the best, that he's going to fight fights that are going to please the fans. And the fans are going to want to, see him fight. And that's it. And it sounds nice to say, but it puts you into a bad spot and puts you into a bad situation, because you already know the plans that your promoter has set up for you. You already know the way your promoter moves. So now your promoter's not gonna let you fight Devin. He's not gonna let you fight Tank. The only person he might let you fight is Ryan Garcia. That's it, because Ryan Garcia is just a big fight. But Ryan Garcia is flawed. So, and your promoter knows that you could take advantage of that. That would be the only one. But Oscar De La Hoya is not going to allow Ryan. I don't believe Oscar's going to allow Ryan to fight Tank. Or we'll see if that fight's going to set up. But I don't think he's going to allow him to fight Tank unless he knows that Ryan's going to leave him after his contract is done. He's not going to fight Teo. He's not going to fight Devin. None of those fights are going to happen. None of them, zero. So they're kind of doing their own thing when it comes to this as well. So whenever you do fight who you're going to fight, fans are going to remember, people are going to remember the things that you're saying now. And you're going to make yourself look a lot worse than you would if you didn't say anything. Or even if you kept on the same path with the stuff that you've been saying. Because now you're saying, I'm not going to be a cherry picker. But then the second that you pick a guy that's not one of these dudes, that's what they're going to say. You're a cherry picker. They're going to say you're a cherry picker. They're going to put their head down, shake their heads. And that's going to be it when it comes to that. And you're going to put yourself into a negative light. You'd be better off just being quiet, saying, hey, I want these guys, I want these guys, I want these guys. But, these guys have this certain road that they have set up for me. And that's how the path I'm going to have to take. You could say something like that, or I want them, but they won't give them to me, or they won't put the money up that, in order to get those fights, so I got to kind of go through the path that I have in front of me, which is still going to be me ending up fighting a harder fight than all these guys. So then at least when you fight that Taylor Ramirez winner, then you can sit there and see it. Like I told y'all, they didn't want me to do that, but this is what I'm doing. And you see the level of guy I'm facing now. And he has all the belts, and I'm fighting for undisputed now. So all this franchise stuff, that's going to go out the window when it comes to this fight. And then you go into that fight like that. And then once you get that, you got the belts, you're the man at 140, no one can really say anything to you. No one can say anything. Then you can fight the Regis Progrades or whoever else comes up at 140 pounds. You can fight them. And because now you're solidified, you're certified. Not only did you beat Lomachenko at 135, but you went up to 140, and now you're undisputed. And you beat Taylor, because I think Taylor beat Ramirez. And you beat Taylor and became undisputed. You beat the more undisputed champion of the world of 140 pounds. You're talking about pound top 2, top 3. And that's a big fight. Might even be pay-per-view. If ESPN and Bob Arum and Top Rank promote it right, it can do good numbers. A good gate too. Have it in New York maybe because Taylor's, because because Taylor's from the UK. That's just a 6-hour flight. Have a mixture of the Mexican fans and that. I don't know, maybe have it in Florida. I don't know. Maybe have it in Texas. It's kind of a little bit of a far of a flight for the guys in the UK, but the UK guys from the UK have gone away down to Vegas to support their fighters. So I believe there's a fight that way they'll take that 12-hour flight in order to support him. You know? But with the things that he's saying right now, it don't mesh with what he was saying before. And it's really not going to mesh with what his promoters decide to have him fight next. It's not going to look good. But regardless of what they decide, we'll see what happens in the next 12 months. And we'll see what happens with his career. But for now, like, subscribe, share. I'm out.